"We all decided you're not invited to the wedding," my mom said with a smug smile. "Good to know," I answered as I moved the $8,600 honeymoon money back into my own account and canceled the flights I had booked under her name. By the next morning, I woke up to 28 missed calls and one message that changed everything: trip canceled. Imagine pouring your heart, your time, and thousands of dollars into your little sister's dream wedding, only for your own mother to look you in the eye and deliver the most crushing blow imaginable. You're not welcome at the wedding. It wasn't just the words, it was the chilling satisfaction in her gaze that truly shattered me. For 32 years, I, Lisa Morgan, had been Rebecca's rock. From teaching her to tie her shoes to navigating high school crushes, I was her constant. Our mom, Deborah, always favored Rebecca, the golden child, with her bubbly personality, while I was the practical one who needed to lighten up. My dad, Thomas, well, he was always just there, choosing peace over ever confronting my mom's behavior. As the eldest, I became the default problem solver, quietly covering family shortfalls and even putting Rebecca through her art history degree when my parents' contributions dried up. It was ironic. I was a financial consultant managing multi-million-dollar portfolios, yet I was still managing my family's finances, too. But I didn't mind. Helping Rebecca pursue her dreams brought me genuine joy. When Rebecca met James 3 years ago, I knew they were meant to be. He was from a wealthy family, but grounded, genuinely supportive of Rebecca's art. Their engagement was no surprise, and I was the first person she called, screaming with excitement. "Lisa," he proposed. "You're going to be my maid of honor, right? I can't do this without you." My heart swelled. Of course, I promised, already mentally planning everything. The initial planning was perfect. Weekends were spent with Rebecca, browsing venues, dreaming up color schemes, and creating Pinterest boards. My apartment started to look like a bridal boutique. But then came the first tremor. During a family dinner to discuss budgets, Mom arrived with a leather-bound planner I'd never seen. "I've already put deposits down on the Clayton Hotel," she announced before anyone had even touched their salad. They only had one date, so I snatched it up. Rebecca looked surprised but pleased. "Mom, that's so generous." But Lisa and I were still comparing venues. Mom just patted Rebecca's hand, shooting me a triumphant glance. "Darling, the Clayton books up a year in advance. We're lucky they had a cancellation. Besides, I've always imagined your wedding there." That was just the beginning. Within weeks, Mom had completely taken over. Vendors I'd researched were dismissed. Our chosen color scheme was suddenly too drab. When I expressed concern, Rebecca shrugged. "It's fine, Mom's really enjoying this. Plus, she and Dad are contributing a lot financially." I bit my tongue, stepping back, feeling like an outsider in my own sister's wedding. The feeling intensified when my cousin Megan, who always had an agenda, started appearing in planning photos with Rebecca and Mom. There she was, holding fabric swatches, attending meetings I hadn't been invited to. "Rebecca seems closer to Megan these days," I mentioned to my boyfriend Tyler, scrolling through another photo of them at a cake tasting. Tyler, ever the pragmatist, suggested, "Maybe Megan just has more free time." "You've been slammed at work." I pushed down the gnawing worry. We'd been constants for 30 years. A few weeks of wedding planning couldn't change that, right? But the invitations stopped coming altogether. Rebecca's calls became vague, rushed. Mom's handling it, or already figured it out, she'd text. All the while, I was still paying for things: the deposit for the photographer Rebecca loved, the custom welcome baskets, and, unbeknownst to anyone, a luxury honeymoon to Bali, first-class flights, a private ocean view villa. I told myself it was just stress. After the wedding, we'd laugh about Mom's takeover. I had no idea how wrong I was or how much worse it would get. The punch to the gut came one afternoon at work. My coworker Natalie, friends with a bridal boutique owner, innocently asked, "How was Rebecca's appointment yesterday?" "Sandra said your sister found the one." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. "What appointment?" Natalie's face fell. "Oh, at Elegant Moments. Sandra said your mom, sister, and cousin had champagne and spent hours there. I just assumed you were there, too." I mumbled something about a work emergency and fled to the bathroom. I stared at my reflection, trying to reconcile being excluded from the moment Rebecca and I had dreamed about since we were teenagers, pretending pillowcases were veils. That evening, I called Rebecca, my voice carefully controlled. "How was dress shopping?" A pause. "Oh, it just happened really fast. Mom had an appointment, and it wasn't supposed to be the actual shopping day, just a preliminary look with Megan. She was free, and we needed a third opinion." Another pause. "I could have made myself free," I said quietly. "You could have asked." Rebecca snapped, "Lisa, don't make this a big deal. There will be plenty of other wedding stuff you can be part of." But there wasn't. The bridal shower was planned without me, though I was asked to contribute financially. Megan took over the bachelorette party, choosing a destination Rebecca wouldn't truly enjoy. My suggestions, based on 30 years of knowing my sister, were dismissed as not what Rebecca wants anymore. Still, I held on, hoping my Bali surprise would bring her back to me. The distance between us grew. Sunday brunches were canceled. Our conversations felt scripted, shallow. "Is everything okay between us?" I finally asked. "Everything's fine. I'm just super busy with wedding stuff," she replied, not quite meeting my eyes. Mom's been amazing handling all the details. Then, 2 months before the wedding, at a family gathering, I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. I was refilling my water glass when I heard my mom's voice from the dining room. "Lisa's always been difficult. Rebecca's finally seeing it now. Always has to control everything. Make everything about her accomplishments." Megan's voice, dripping with fake sympathy, chimed in. "It must be hard for Rebecca, especially during her wedding when she should be the center of attention." "Exactly," Mom declared. That's why we've had to minimize her involvement for Rebecca's sake. I stood frozen, water overflowing my glass. My own mother was actively working to exclude me, painting me as some attention-seeking monster. That night, I broke down to Tyler. What if they don't even want me at the wedding anymore? What if all this distancing is leading to something worse? Tyler held me close. That's not possible. You're Rebecca's sister. You've done nothing but support her. But what if Mom has convinced her otherwise? You don't know how persuasive she can be, how she twists things. Tyler was firm. Then you need to talk to Rebecca directly. No more guessing, no more hoping it will get better on its own. He was right. I texted Rebecca the next morning. Need to talk about the wedding and our relationship. Can we meet tomorrow? Her response came hours later. Really busy with wedding stuff. Come to Mom and Dad's on Thursday at 7 o'clock. We can talk then. Those 5 days were the longest of my life. I rehearsed my calm, non-accusatory words. I reminded myself Rebecca might be caught in the middle. I arrived Thursday evening with hope in my heart, completely unaware I was walking into an ambush that would shatter everything. The air felt unnaturally still as I parked outside my parents' house. The driveway where Rebecca and I had played hopscotch now felt like a foreign country. Mom opened the door before I could even ring the bell, her expression unreadable. We're in the living room, she said curtly, turning away. Inside, it felt staged. Dad uncomfortable and gray. Rebecca, perched on the sofa edge, eyes downcast, twisting her fingers. Mom stood protectively behind her. And there, in my usual spot, sat Megan, smug and concerned. What's going on? I asked, remaining standing. Rebecca, I thought we were going to talk about the wedding. That's why we're all here, Mom interjected, cutting Rebecca off. There's something you need to understand about the wedding. A strange stillness settled over me. We've been discussing things, Mom continued, her voice patronizing, and we all agreed that your involvement in the wedding has become problematic. Problematic. I echoed, looking at Rebecca, who still wouldn't meet my gaze. Your controlling behavior, Mom ticked off on her fingers, your need to make everything about yourself. The way you've tried to overshadow Rebecca's special time with your opinions and your financial contributions. I felt like I was in an alternate reality. Rebecca? I pleaded, desperate for her to speak. She finally looked up, a mix of guilt and rehearsed resolve. It's just been really stressful, Lisa. Every time you get involved, there's tension. Mom thinks, I repeated softly. What do you think, Rebecca? Before she could answer, Mom stepped forward, placing herself between us. What Rebecca thinks is that her wedding should be a happy occasion. And frankly, your presence would make that impossible. The room tilted. My presence at the planning? You mean? Mom's lips curved into a smirk. We all agreed. You're not welcome at the wedding. Not as maid of honor, not as a bridesmaid, not as a guest. It's better for everyone this way. The silence was absolute. I could hear the antique clock ticking, marking an endless moment. Dad shifted, but said nothing. Megan had the decency to look away. And Rebecca, my sister, my best friend since her first breath, sat in complicit silence, effectively ending 30 years of sisterhood. I see, I finally said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. And when was this decision made? We've been moving this direction for months, Mom replied, pleased by my calm, mistaking shock for acceptance. Rebecca asked Megan to be her maid of honor weeks ago. We just needed to make it official. I turned to Megan. Congratulations, I said flatly. It's nothing personal, she mumbled. Nothing personal? Replacing me in my sister's wedding, in my sister's life? Rebecca, I tried one more time. Is this really what you want? Mom answered again. Rebecca wants a drama-free wedding. You've always been too controlling, too opinionated. Everything has to be your way. The venue wasn't good enough. The caterer wasn't up to your standards. That's not true, and you know it. I interrupted, the first crack in my facade. I've supported every decision, even when I wasn't consulted. I've contributed thousands of dollars without being asked. See, there it is. Mom pointed accusingly. Throwing your money in our faces, using your financial contributions to control the wedding. That's exactly why you can't be there. I looked at my father, pleading silently. He met my eyes briefly, then looked away. His lifelong pattern of avoiding conflict, winning out even now. A strange calm settled over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a carefully orchestrated exclusion. Good to know, I said simply. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Rebecca call my name, once, softly, but no footsteps followed. No one tried to stop me. The drive home was a blur. Streetlights smeared as tears welled up. I pulled over twice. My phone buzzed constantly, but I couldn't look. Tyler was waiting, his face hopeful, until he saw mine. What happened? He asked, pulling me into a hug. The whole story poured out, disjointed fragments between sobs. They can't do this, he exclaimed. You're her sister. You've done nothing but support her. Apparently, that doesn't matter, I whispered, utterly exhausted. Mom's been working on this for months, turning Rebecca against me, making me out to be some kind of villain. Tyler asked, what are you going to do? I stared out the window, feeling hollow, yet strangely lighter. I don't know yet, I admitted. But I know I deserve better than this. All of this. What I didn't realize then was that this confrontation wasn't the end. It was the setup for what would come next, the depths of betrayal, and the unexpected path to healing. Sleep was impossible. By 4 a.m., I gave up, sitting at my kitchen table, my cold tea a stark reminder of the chill in my heart. I began to catalog my contributions to Rebecca's wedding, $2,500 for the photographer, $1,800 for custom welcome baskets, $1,200 for a string quartet surprise. The list grew. And then the honeymoon, the crown jewel, $4,200 for first-class flights to Bali, $3,800 for the private villa, $600 for special experiences. Over $15,000 for a wedding I was banned from. As dawn broke, I made my decision. I opened my laptop. With steady fingers, I transferred the $8,600 honeymoon fund back to my account. I methodically canceled every reservation. My phone had been buzzing all night, 3 missed calls from Rebecca, a dozen from Mom, even one from Dad. Mom's texts ranged from defensive to accusatory. No remorse. I made one last call to my credit card company. I need to report some unauthorized charges, I explained. Family members have been making purchases without my permission. It wasn't entirely accurate, but it wasn't entirely untrue either. By 7 a.m., my financial ties to Rebecca's wedding were severed. I emailed my boss for a personal day, then turned off my phone. The sudden silence was both terrifying and liberating. I walked through public gardens, trying to process the raw, physical ache of betrayal. Rebecca and I had shared everything for 30 years. How could she sit silently? How could she replace me with Megan? Around noon, I met Olivia for lunch. One look at my face, and she knew. They did what? She exclaimed, loud enough for neighboring tables to turn. Your own mother said that to your face? I nodded, pushing my salad around. And Rebecca just sat there, said nothing. Olivia's outrage was validating. So I trailed off, the hurt still too raw. Olivia reached for my hand. Lisa, there's something you should know. I didn't tell you before, but now I think you need to hear it. Your mom has been saying things about you for months now. My stomach tightened. What? At Rebecca's engagement party, she told my mom you were jealous of Rebecca's happiness. And at the Williams dinner, she mentioned how concerned everyone was about your fragile emotional state, how the family was walking on eggshells around you. I stared, stunned. What? Why would she say that? I don't know. But she's been planting these little seeds with everyone. Small comments, concerned looks. Nothing direct enough to seem malicious, just enough to create this impression that you're unstable. Difficult. Olivia squeezed my hand. I shut it down whenever I heard it, but I'm not everywhere. My mother's words echoed. Your controlling behavior. Your need to make everything about yourself. She hadn't just been turning Rebecca against me. She'd been systematically undermining me with everyone we knew. But why? I whispered. What does she gain? Control, Olivia said simply. You're successful, independent, financially stable. You have what she never did. My mom always said your mother seemed jealous of you, even when we were kids. The pieces clicked into place, illuminating decades of small cruelties I'd normalized. By the time I got home, I felt different. Still hurt, but clearer. I turned my phone back on. Notifications flooded in, 28 missed calls. Voicemails from Mom's cold fury to Dad's uncomfortable peacemaking. And one message from Rebecca, sent at 3:42 a.m., that changed everything. I'm so sorry, Lisa. Mom's been lying to me about you for months. James and I just found out what she did with the honeymoon reservations. Please call me, please. I need my sister back. I stared at it, my thumb hovering. The raw emotion felt genuine. But after yesterday's brutal confrontation, I wasn't ready to dive back in without understanding more. The other messages painted a picture of implosion. Mom's voicemails escalated from righteous indignation. How dare you cancel the honeymoon after promising it? To threatening, you've left me no choice but to tell everyone about your behavior. To a forced plea, we can still fix this if you apologize. Dad's messages were fewer, more subdued. Your mother is very upset, he'd said in one, background noise suggesting he was calling from his car. I didn't know about any of this until yesterday. Please call when you can. Other family members chimed in. My uncle, always Mom's ally, a stern lecture about respecting parents. My grandmother clearly fed Mom's version. But then an unexpected message from Aunt Catherine, Dad's sister. I've watched your mother do this before, Lisa. She did the same to me with your father. Call me. We need to talk. I called Aunt Catherine first. Oh, Lisa, her warm voice filled the line. I've been so worried. Are you all right? Not really, I admitted. Why would Mom do this? Because you threaten her, she said simply. You always have, since you were little. So capable, so independent. Deborah needs to control everything. When that's challenged, she reacts. By turning my sister against me? By banning me from the wedding. It's what she does, Catherine sighed. She did the same to me when I was your age. Your father and I were always close. But when he met Deborah, things changed. She created conflicts that didn't exist. By their wedding, I wasn't welcome either. I sat down heavily. Dad never told me that. Thomas has always chosen peace over confrontation. We eventually reconciled, but never like before. But this isn't about old history. This is about stopping the pattern now. After Catherine, I called Andrea, my college friend who's a therapist. Without breaking confidentiality, she helped me understand the dynamics, narcissistic patterns, triangulation, the golden child/scapegoat dynamic. The most important thing Andrea emphasized is protecting your own boundaries while leaving room for Rebecca to find her way back. She's been manipulated too. I was still processing this when my phone rang again. James. Lisa, he sounded genuinely distressed. Thank God you answered. It's been chaos here. Rebecca's been crying for hours. What happened, James? I kept my voice neutral. We found out what your mother's been doing. The lies she's been telling. The emails she altered. Lisa, Rebecca never knew you were excluded from dress shopping. Your mom told her you couldn't make it, showed her texts from you canceling. What? I never sent any texts. We know that now. Your mother apparently created fake conversations, making it look like you were too busy or didn't care. When we confronted her, she admitted to changing names in Rebecca's contact list too. Rerouting some of your texts to her own phone. The level of deliberate manipulation was staggering. But yesterday at the house? Rebecca thought that meeting was to reconcile things. Your mother told her you'd been saying horrible things about the wedding, that you needed to hear how hurt everyone was. She never expected what actually happened. My head spun. Why is she telling me this through you? Because she's terrified you'll never speak to her again. And he hesitated. Your mother showed up at our apartment last night after you left. She was not well, screaming about ungrateful children. It got bad enough that neighbors called building security. The situation was spiraling faster than I could process. I need to think, James. This is all too much. I understand. Just don't shut the door completely. Rebecca loves you. She's been manipulated too. I promised nothing, but said I'd be in touch. I barely hung up when my work phone rang. Sandra, our receptionist. Lisa, I hate to bother you, but your mother arrived 20 minutes ago demanding to see you. She's causing quite a scene in the lobby. My professional and personal worlds were colliding. What is she doing? Making accusations, telling anyone who'll listen that you've stolen money from her, that you're having some kind of breakdown. Sandra lowered her voice. Mr. Daniels is trying to handle it, but she's becoming erratic. I'll be right there. The 15-minute drive to my office felt like entering a battle zone. Mom had never visited my workplace before. Now she was there, deliberately targeting the professional reputation I'd built. I arrived to find security escorting her from the building, her voice carrying across the lobby. You don't know what she's capable of. She's always been troubled. The embarrassment burned across my face. Mr. Daniels, my supervisor, approached me. Lisa, take whatever time you need. Your work speaks for itself. No one here is paying attention to unfounded accusations. His support was comforting, but the public spectacle left me exposed, violated. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. Mom was actively trying to destroy my life. As security guided her to the parking lot, her eyes locked with mine across the lobby. Instead of shame, I saw cold fury and something worse, satisfaction. In that moment, something shifted within me. The hurt child seeking maternal approval disappeared. A clear-eyed adult emerged, finally seeing the pattern of manipulation for what it was. This wasn't love. This wasn't family. This was abuse, and it had gone on long enough. I returned to my apartment and made a decision. It was time to address this, not with emotional reactions, but with calm, irrefutable truth. I would meet with Rebecca and anyone else involved to lay out exactly what had happened and establish boundaries that would protect my well-being. Whether those boundaries included attending the wedding or even maintaining contact with my mother remained to be seen. But for the first time, I understood that I deserved better treatment than I'd received, and I was prepared to demand it. 2 days later, I sat at a corner table in a quiet cafe. I'd arrived early, arranging printed evidence in a folder beside me, screenshots of original texts that contradicted Mom's fabrications, email confirmations of arrangements I'd made, bank statements showing my contributions. Rebecca arrived alone, looking smaller, her usual confidence diminished. Dark circles beneath her eyes matched my own. Thank you for coming, she said softly. James isn't joining us? I asked, surprised. He's parking. I wanted a few minutes with just you first. Her hands trembled as she arranged her purse. Lisa, I don't even know where to begin. I waited. I believed her, Rebecca finally said, her voice breaking. All these months, Mom showed me texts from you canceling plans, telling me you thought my wedding choices were tacky, that you were too busy with your important career to be bothered. Tears spilled onto her cheeks. I believed her because it was easier than thinking my mother would lie so completely. She showed you fake texts? I asked, struggling to grasp the deception. Rebecca nodded, pulling out her phone. James figured it out. Look. She showed me her messaging app. Conversations that were supposedly from me, but filled with dismissive, snide remarks. Mom had access to my phone. She created a contact with her number, but your name. When I thought I was texting you, I was actually texting her. And she deleted real messages from you. But what about when we saw each other in person? I asked. We barely saw each other. Mom always had an excuse for why you couldn't make it to wedding events. And when we did meet, she was always there, controlling the conversation, interpreting everything you said in the worst light. Rebecca looked up as James approached our table. She poisoned everything. James sat down, placing 3 coffees before us. Lisa, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what was happening sooner. How did you figure it out? I asked. The honeymoon cancellation was the tipping point, James explained. When Rebecca got the notification, she was confused because she didn't even know about the Bali trip. Your mother claimed you had promised this elaborate honeymoon, but canceled it vindicatively after being excluded. But that made no sense, Rebecca interjected. Why would you spend thousands if you were as resentful as Mom claimed? So we started investigating, James continued. Checking her phone records, comparing timestamps. Once we started looking, the whole fabrication fell apart. The final proof? We found a folder on your mother's tablet. Screenshots of fake conversations she'd created, probably to keep her story straight. I pushed my own folder across the table. I brought my own evidence. As they reviewed my documents, their expressions shifted from shock to horror to indignation. The contrast between my actual words and actions versus what my mother had portrayed was stark. That day at your parents' house, James said, Rebecca thought we were meeting to clear the air. She had no idea your mother was planning to ban you. I froze, Rebecca admitted, shame evident. When Mom started saying those terrible things, claiming we'd all agreed, I was in shock. By the time I processed what was happening, you were already gone. Her hand reached for mine. Lisa, I never agreed to exclude you. Never. You're my sister, my best friend. I can't get married without you there. The validation brought a rush of emotion. For months, I'd been gaslit, made to question my own worth. We need to talk about Mom, I said, once my voice was steady. This isn't normal. This is deliberate, calculated manipulation. It gets worse, James said grimly. After you left that night, Rebecca confronted your mother. The things she said, the venom, it was like watching someone transform. Rebecca nodded. She admitted to everything, but with no remorse. She said she was protecting me from your negative influence. When I said I wanted you back in the wedding, she threatened to withdraw all financial support and tell everyone I was having a pre-wedding breakdown. Just like what she's been saying about me, I murmured. Exactly, James confirmed. It's a pattern she uses to discredit anyone who challenges her. We spent the next hour mapping out the full extent of my mother's manipulation. Each revelation built upon the last, creating a comprehensive picture of calculated emotional abuse spanning decades. I've arranged a meeting, I finally said, with Dad, Aunt Catherine, and a few other family members who need to hear the truth. A neutral family intervention of sorts. When? Rebecca asked. Tomorrow evening. Will you come? She nodded without hesitation. Of course. It's time everyone knew the truth. The family meeting was both difficult and necessary. We gathered in Aunt Catherine's living room. Myself, Rebecca, and James, Dad, Aunt Catherine, Uncle Paul, and our maternal grandmother. I presented the evidence methodically, without emotion. The fake texts, financial records, witness accounts. Catherine shared her own experiences from decades earlier. James described Mom's meltdown. Dad sat silent, growing grayer as the evidence mounted. When he finally spoke, his voice barely audible, I knew some of it. Not the extent, but enough that I should have done something long ago. He looked at me, eyes full of regret. I chose peace over protecting you. I'm so sorry, Lisa. Mom arrived last, expecting a wedding budget discussion. Her confident entrance faltered when she saw us. What is this? She demanded. A chance for truth, I said simply. What followed was predictable. Initial denial, accusations of conspiracy, attempts to win allies, then rage, and finally, tears and claims of misunderstanding. I will not be treated this way, she declared when her performance failed. After everything I've done for this family, for Rebecca's wedding, about the wedding, Rebecca interrupted, standing to face our mother directly. Lisa will be my maid of honor, as I always wanted. If you can't accept that and behave respectfully toward her, then you will have a severely limited role. Mom's face contorted with shock. You would choose her over your own mother? I'm choosing truth over manipulation, Rebecca replied steadily. I'm choosing health over toxicity. Your father will never allow this. Mom turned to Dad, expectation clear. For perhaps the first time in their marriage, Dad didn't yield. Deborah, enough. Look at what you've done. Look at the evidence. This stops now. The intervention didn't end with a neat resolution. Mom left in a fury, promising consequences for our betrayal. But something fundamental had shifted. The pattern of manipulation had been exposed, named, and rejected. As difficult as family members and wedding dynamics go, we were far from the finish line. But for the first time, I felt we were all walking in the same direction, toward truth and healthier relationships. The week before Rebecca's wedding arrived with a tentative new normal. Mom cycled through tactics, from icy silence to tearful pleas, but eventually agreed to the new boundaries. Dad, decades of choosing peace, found a new strength. I should have protected you both long ago, he confessed to me. I convinced myself that saying nothing was the same as keeping the peace. I was wrong. Why now, Dad? I asked. Seeing it all laid out like that, the deliberate nature of it, he paused. I couldn't hide from it anymore. And honestly, Lisa, I'm tired. His vulnerability was both shocking and healing. Rebecca and I were rebuilding our relationship, our bond bruised. But not broken. We spent long hours talking, grieving the months of sisterhood we'd lost. I keep thinking what would have happened if James hadn't discovered those fake texts, she'd say. Let's not think about that, I'd reply. We're here now. As for Mom, the family presented clear conditions. She could participate, but her role would be restricted. To everyone's surprise, she eventually agreed, though the resentment in her eyes, quickly masked, told the true story. My own journey through this was transformative. The devastation gave way to clarity. Therapy helped me recognize my own patterns of enabling and people-pleasing. Your worth isn't measured by what you provide to others, my therapist reminded me. Those words became a mantra. I reinstated my role as maid of honor with a newfound sense of boundaries. Yes, I'd help. No, I wouldn't deplete my savings or sacrifice my well-being. I even rebooked a modified honeymoon for Rebecca and James. This is a gift freely given, with no strings attached, I told them, not a payment for inclusion. The wedding day arrived, sunny and clear. As I helped Rebecca into her dress, the one I hadn't seen her choose, I felt a pang of loss for the uncomplicated joy this day should have held. Rebecca caught my expression. I wish we could erase the last few months, she said softly. I don't, I surprised myself by saying. As painful as it was, it brought truth into the open. We can build something healthier now. She turned to face me. When did my big sister get so wise? Probably around the time my little sister got so brave, I replied, adjusting her veil. The ceremony was beautiful. I stood proudly, holding her bouquet. Mom sat in the front row, her composure perfect, her eyes occasionally meeting mine with unreadable emotion. The most unexpected moment of healing occurred during the reception. I was momentarily alone near the gift table when Mom's voice came from behind me. The calligraphy is beautiful. That was your doing, wasn't it? I turned, braced for criticism, but her expression held genuine appreciation. Yes, I answered simply. Rebecca mentioned loving hand lettering. Mom nodded. An uncomfortable silence. Then she spoke again, her voice lower, less certain. You've always noticed those details about people, what they love, what matters to them. I never had that gift. It was a tiny admission, yet so significant. The therapist Catherine recommended, Mom continued, looking away, says I need to practice acknowledging other strengths without feeling diminished by them. A brief, humorless laugh. Apparently, I have work to do in that area. You're seeing a therapist. I couldn't hide my surprise. Your father insisted, after everything. She trailed off, then squared her shoulders. I don't expect this to fix things between us. I know that will take time, if it's even possible. But I am trying. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a transformation. But it was a tiny crack in the fortress of denial she'd built. And for today, that was enough. 1 month later, our family began tentative group therapy sessions. Mom attended, reluctantly at first, then with increasing willingness. Dad found his voice, speaking truths long suppressed. Rebecca and I strengthened our sisterhood, now built on mutual respect. My own healing journey continued. I established clearer boundaries in all relationships, learned to recognize when my helping veered into unhealthy territory. And most importantly, I began to value myself apart from what I could provide for others. Tyler was my rock throughout it all. 6 months after Rebecca's wedding, during a hike to our favorite mountain overlook, he proposed. Yes, I said without hesitation. But with one condition. He raised an eyebrow. Our wedding planning stays between us. Small committee, clear boundaries, no drama. His laughter echoed across the valley. Deal. Life continued to evolve. Mom's progress came in fits and starts, but genuine growth appeared. Dad discovered a newfound confidence. Rebecca and James welcomed their first child, making me an aunt to a little girl whose middle name, Lisa, brought tears to my eyes. I learned perhaps the most valuable lesson of all, that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting. That boundaries aren't barriers to love, but foundations for its healthiest expression. And that standing firm in your own worth is not selfish, but essential. The week before Rebecca's wedding, a tentative new normal had begun to settle within our fractured family. Mom had cycled through various tactics, icy silence, tearful pleas, rage-filled accusations, before a grudging outward acceptance of the new boundaries we'd established. Dad, after decades of choosing peace, had surprised us all by standing firm in his support of Rebecca's decision to reinstate me as maid of honor. I should have protected you both long ago, he told me. I convinced myself that saying nothing was the same as keeping the peace. I was wrong. His vulnerability was both shocking and healing, a new version of my father emerging. Rebecca and I had been rebuilding our relationship day by day, our bond bruised, but not broken, spending long hours talking through the manipulations that had driven us apart. As for Mom, the family had presented her with clear conditions for attending the wedding, which, to everyone's surprise, she eventually agreed to. My own journey through this ordeal had been transformative, leading to clearer boundaries and a deeper understanding of my own worth, independent of what I could provide for others. Tyler had been my rock. 6 months after Rebecca's wedding, during a weekend hike to our favorite mountain overlook, he proposed. Yes, I'd said without hesitation, but with one condition, our wedding planning stays between us. Small committee, clear boundaries, no drama. His laughter echoed across the valley. Deal. That deal became our mantra. My own wedding planning, you guys, was an entirely different beast. After the emotional roller coaster of Rebecca's wedding, Tyler and I were determined to create a day that was authentically us. We pictured something intimate, joyful, and, most importantly, drama-free. We envisioned a small ceremony at a beautiful botanical garden, followed by a relaxed reception at a local farm-to-table restaurant. It felt like a fresh start, a celebration not just of our love, but of the peace I'd finally found. Of course, no drama is a great aspiration, especially when you're dealing with family dynamics like mine. Mom, bless her heart, tried. Oh, she tried. When we announced our engagement, her initial reaction was a practiced smile, a hug that felt a little too tight, and then, the inevitable. Darling, she purred, I've already started thinking about the guest list. And you simply must have the catering from the Clayton. Their lobster bisque is divine. I just smiled back, a calm I wouldn't have possessed even a year ago. Thanks, Mom, but Tyler and I have already decided on a smaller, more intimate affair. We're keeping the guest list very tight, and we've picked out a wonderful local caterer. We're really excited about it. You could literally see the shift in her eyes, the momentary flash of frustration before the mask of pleasantness slid back into place. Oh, well, that's certainly unique, dear. But what about the dress? I've already made an appointment at Elegant Moments. Rebecca found hers there, you know. This was Mom's way of subtly trying to reinsert herself, to make my wedding about her experience with Rebecca's. But I just shook my head gently. That's very sweet of you, Mom, but I actually went dress shopping with Olivia last weekend and found the one. The silence was deafening. This was new territory for her, no room for argument, no negotiation. It was a statement of fact, delivered calmly but firmly. And she hated it. My relationship with Dad, meanwhile, continued to deepen in ways I never thought possible. He'd started seeing his own therapist after the intervention, not just to support Mom, but for himself. He finally began processing decades of walking on eggshells, of being the peacekeeper who sacrificed his own truth. He would call me, sometimes just to chat, sometimes to share a quiet observation about Mom's behavior, always with a new kind of self-awareness. You know, he confessed one evening, your mother thrives on being indispensable. When you started taking care of things for Rebecca, for the family, it took away her perceived control. I think that's when she really started to resent you. It wasn't an excuse for her behavior, but an insight that helped me understand the roots of her manipulation. It didn't make it right, but it helped me separate her actions from any fault of my own. His honesty was incredibly healing. Rebecca was also flourishing. She was a mom now to little Lily, whose middle name, Lisa, still made my eyes well up. Seeing Rebecca with Lily, so nurturing and protective, made me realize just how deeply Mom's manipulations had affected her, too. Rebecca had a newfound steeliness when it came to her mother. Mom tried to tell me I was feeding Lily the wrong kind of organic purees yesterday. Rebecca recounted one Sunday brunch, a tradition Tyler and I had reinstated with her. I just smiled and said, "Thanks for the suggestion, Mom, but James and I are following our pediatrician's advice." And then I changed the subject. It's amazing how much easier it is now that I'm not trying to convince her to change her mind, just stating my boundary. I saw so much of myself in her, a strength that had been lying dormant. Our sisterhood wasn't just restored, it was stronger, built on honesty and mutual respect. Planning our wedding became a joyous experience, almost meditative in its calm. Tyler and I focused on what mattered to us: delicious food, good music, celebrating with our closest friends and family. Mom's attempts at interference were subtle now, almost pathetic in their transparency. A passive-aggressive comment about our chosen menu being a bit adventurous for some guests. An unsolicited delivery of garish floral arrangements to our apartment, just in case you needed more options, darling. We'd thank her, then calmly explain that we had our own plans. We had a code word now, Tyler and I, for when Mom's manipulative comments surfaced: pineapple. If one of us said pineapple, the other knew to gracefully redirect or politely end the conversation. It sounds silly, but it worked. Aunt Catherine continued to be a wonderful source of support and wisdom. Her experience with Mom during her own wedding had given her unique insight. Deborah loves to be the center of attention, she explained to me over tea. If she can't be the star, she'll try to be the victim, or the martyr, or the one who knows best. Your wedding is not her stage, Lisa. Your joy is your own, and you have every right to protect it. My own therapist, Dr. Marshall, was instrumental in helping me solidify these new boundaries, not as acts of aggression, but as acts of self-care. Boundaries aren't about controlling someone else's behavior, she'd remind me. They're about defining what you will and won't accept in your own life. This shifted my perspective entirely. It wasn't about trying to change Mom, it was about protecting my own peace and well-being. As the wedding day approached, an unexpected wave of calm washed over me. There was no frantic last-minute drama, no sleepless nights filled with anxiety. Tyler and I had done it our way. We created a celebration that reflected our values, and the people attending were there because they genuinely loved and supported us, not because they were playing a role in someone else's production. The wedding day dawned crisp and beautiful. My dress, a simple, elegant ivory, felt perfectly me. Olivia, my best friend, stood by my side as my maid of honor, radiating genuine joy. Rebecca was there, looking stunning, cradling Lily, who wore a tiny floral headband. Dad, in his well-tailored suit, looked younger, lighter, a quiet confidence replacing his usual anxious deference. Even Mom, in her perfectly chosen lavender dress, managed a semblance of composure. She exchanged pleasantries, her smile a little too fixed, but she didn't interfere. The day was a testament to the strength of my boundaries and the collective resolve of my family. The ceremony in the botanical garden was everything I'd dreamed of. Sun-dappled and intimate, filled with laughter and happy tears. Tyler's vows made me sob openly, and saying I do felt like stepping into a future built on solid ground. At the reception, Mom sat at her table, observing. I caught her eye once, and for a fleeting moment, her mask slipped. I saw a flicker of something, perhaps regret, perhaps longing, perhaps just the cold fury I was so familiar with. But it passed, and she resumed her performance of the gracious mother of the bride. No scene, no drama. It was beautiful, peaceful, and utterly mine. Life as Mrs. Tyler Matthews was everything I'd hoped for. Our little apartment felt like a sanctuary, a place where genuine love and respect blossomed. My career continued to thrive, and I found that my newly honed boundary-setting skills were surprisingly beneficial in the corporate world, too. I was more assertive, clearer in my communications, and less prone to people-pleasing. However, life with a narcissistic parent is rarely a neat, linear path. Mom's progress in therapy, while real in some ways, was often punctuated by significant relapses. Her attendance would wax and wane, and with it, her behavior. These were the periods where the family's new boundaries were truly tested. One such incident occurred about a year after my wedding. Rebecca and James were struggling a bit financially. James's art gallery wasn't doing as well as they'd hoped, and Rebecca had just had Lily, limiting her own artistic output. Mom, ever the helpful matriarch, saw an opportunity. She offered to invest in James's gallery, but with a laundry list of conditions. She would control the finances, advise on art selection, and even suggested James hire one of her friends as a manager. It was a thinly veiled attempt to gain control over Rebecca's life, much like she had done with Rebecca's wedding. Rebecca, however, was no longer the naive girl she once was. She saw through it immediately. She called me, voice tight with frustration. Mom's trying to buy the gallery, Lisa. She's making it sound like she's doing us a huge favor, but all her suggestions are about taking over. This was the moment I knew our new normal was truly working. Rebecca wasn't asking me to fix it, she was asking for support, for validation of her feelings. What are you going to do? I asked, knowing she already had an idea. James and I are going to politely decline, she stated firmly. We'll figure it out ourselves. We don't need her strings attached. It wasn't easy. Mom reacted with a storm of manipulative phone calls, playing the victim, accusing Rebecca of ingratitude, even suggesting she was a bad mother for jeopardizing her family's financial future by refusing help. But Rebecca held firm. She used the pineapple code with James, and they calmly, repeatedly, declined the offer, focusing on their own plans to revitalize the gallery. It was a hard lesson for Mom. Her old tactics were losing their power. Dad, too, was becoming a force to be reckoned with in his own quiet way. He'd started taking painting classes, something he'd always wanted to do but had suppressed for decades. His art, surprisingly vibrant and expressive, became his own form of rebellion. Mom initially scoffed, calling it a hobby for retirees. But Dad simply smiled, his gaze serene. One evening, Mom tried to guilt him into pressuring Rebecca about the gallery. "Thomas, you need to talk some sense into your daughter. She's being so foolish." Dad paused, then looked at her calmly. "Deborah, Rebecca is a grown woman. She and James will make their own decisions. My job is to support them, not control them. Perhaps you should try that." The words hung in the air, a quiet revolution in their dynamic. Mom, for once, was speechless. These smaller incidents, these tests of our boundaries, slowly chipped away at Mom's perceived power. She continued therapy, but her therapist eventually communicated to Dad, with Mom's permission, as a condition of therapy, that her progress was limited by her inability to truly acknowledge her manipulative patterns. She could talk about them, but she couldn't feel them, couldn't genuinely empathize with the pain she'd caused. She operated from a place of shoulds and oughts, rather than genuine understanding. The final, definitive confrontation, the true resolution, came not long after Lily's first birthday. Rebecca and James had planned a small, intimate party at their home. We were all there, Tyler and I, Dad, Aunt Catherine, Olivia, and a few close friends. Mom arrived, initially on her best behavior. But as the evening progressed, fueled by a little too much wine and the perceived lack of attention, she began to unravel. She cornered Rebecca in the kitchen. "You know, Rebecca," she started, loud enough for a few people to hear, "it's really a shame you never pursued your artistic talents fully. If you'd just listened to me, you wouldn't be struggling with this gallery now. And Lisa," she added, turning her gaze pointedly toward me, "always thinks she knows best, but she just enabled you." Rebecca, holding Lily, looked at Mom, her face a mixture of hurt and resolute anger. "Mom, please. Not tonight. Not here." But Mom was on a roll. "Oh, am I embarrassing you, darling? The truth always hurts, doesn't it? If you two had just let me plan your weddings properly, and if you'd let me manage your gallery, your lives would be so much better. You're both so ungrateful after everything I've done for you." Her voice was rising, drawing everyone's attention. The room fell silent. Dad, who had been chatting with James, walked over, his face pale but firm. "Deborah," he said, his voice quiet but commanding, "that's enough." Mom rounded on him. "Enough? You're telling me enough? You've always let them walk all over me, Thomas. You just sit there, painting your little pictures, while I try to hold this family together." And then, she made her biggest mistake. She turned to Lily, who was beginning to whimper in Rebecca's arms. "And this poor child," Mom declared, her voice dripping with false pity, "who knows what kind of future she'll have with such irresponsible parents and an aunt who enables them." That was it. That was the line. Something in me snapped. I stepped forward, putting myself between Mom and Rebecca. My voice was calm, but it vibrated with a force I hadn't known I possessed. "Mom," I said, every word carefully articulated, "you are out of line. You have no right to speak to Rebecca or James or about Lily like that. This behavior is unacceptable." "Unacceptable," she scoffed, her eyes blazing. "I'm just speaking the truth." "No," I countered, "you're trying to hurt us. You're trying to control us. And we are done. We are absolutely done." Rebecca, usually so gentle, found her own roar. "Get out, Mom. Get out of my house." Her voice trembled, but her resolve was absolute. Mom stared, her face contorting, shocked that both her daughters were standing against her so openly, so fiercely. Dad stepped up beside us, putting a hand on each of our backs. "Deborah, you need to leave. Now." For a moment, I thought she might explode. But then she seemed to deflate, her fury turning to a cold, hard glare. "Fine," she spat, grabbing her purse. "Fine. You can all live your miserable, ungrateful lives without me. You'll see. You'll all come crawling back." And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The silence she left behind was heavy, but it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of before. It was a cleansing silence. The air felt lighter. Guests slowly began to talk again, some giving us sympathetic glances, others pretending nothing had happened. Aunt Catherine came over, her eyes full of pride. "That took courage, girls," she murmured, hugging us both. True courage. That night, after everyone had left, Rebecca, James, Dad, Tyler, and I sat in the quiet living room. We were exhausted, but there was a palpable sense of peace, a feeling of having finally exhaled. "I don't know what to do next," Rebecca admitted, her voice hoarse. "I love her, but I can't keep doing this." "You don't have to," I said. "None of us do. We need to protect ourselves. We need to protect Lily." Dad, surprisingly, spoke first. I think we need a break. A real break. No contact for a while. Not to punish her, but to heal ourselves. And for her, perhaps, to truly face the consequences of her actions. It was a profound statement, coming from a man who had spent his entire life avoiding confrontation. We decided collectively, low to no contact, indefinitely. It wasn't an easy decision, and it certainly wasn't without pain. There were holidays that felt emptier, family gatherings that had an obvious absence. Mom tried to reach out through other relatives, playing the victim, but our united front held firm. We sent a polite, brief letter stating our need for space, not as a condition for reconciliation, but as a boundary for our own mental and emotional health. Life after that decision was complicated. There were moments of guilt, of questioning if we'd done the right thing. But those moments were quickly overshadowed by the immense peace and freedom we all felt. Rebecca thrived as an artist and a mother, her gallery eventually finding its footing, her family life harmonious and loving. Dad, released from the pressure of mediating, truly bloomed. His paintings found an audience, and he fostered a deeper, more authentic connection with us, his daughters, a bond built on honesty rather than obligation. Tyler and I continued to build our life together, our marriage a testament to mutual respect and clear communication. Our home became a haven, not just for us, but for Rebecca, James, and Lily, a place where genuine connection was celebrated, free from manipulation. Years passed. We heard news of Mom through other relatives. She was still in therapy, sometimes improving, sometimes not. She never fully acknowledged the depth of her manipulative behavior, never offered a genuine, heartfelt apology. And we, in turn, never sought one. We had learned that true healing didn't depend on her changing, but on us accepting her for who she was and protecting ourselves from her patterns. The path from that devastating night when my mother said those cruel words, "We all agreed, you're not welcome at the wedding," to where I stand now was not direct or easy. It required courage to face painful truths, wisdom to distinguish healthy relationships from toxic ones, and strength to demand the respect I deserved. I learned that forgiveness doesn't require forgetting, and it certainly doesn't require reconciliation with someone who is unwilling to change. It's about releasing the bitterness for your own sake. I learned that boundaries aren't barriers to love, but foundations for its healthiest expression. And that standing firm in your own worth is not selfish, but absolutely essential for a life of peace and authentic joy. Sometimes, the hardest boundaries to set are the ones that ultimately lead to the deepest healing. And sometimes, when the door to reconciliation seems firmly closed, it's actually the first step toward opening a healthier one for yourself. If you're facing similar family challenges or painful exclusions, remember that your worth isn't determined by others' ability to recognize it. Find your voice, set your boundaries, and trust that the peace you gain is worth every difficult conversation. Your story matters, and so does your well-being. Thank you for listening.